Before we expose this or any inside engine component, anything that's exposed to the inside of the engine, we must take very good care of isolating any kind of blast media that you don't want getting inside an internal engine compartment. So, for example, the underside of this has a bunch of baffles and things to retain oil and to reduce oil splash. Now, these baffles, they'll trap media. So if we didn't take this extra precaution of masking off and making sure we seal off the internal portion of this valve cover from the external portion, you could develop problems when you put this car back together. Now, well, what I've done here is I went ahead and I put the original gasket back on the bottom of the valve cover. So the original gasket is there. I also went ahead and took some yoga mat that I had some scrap pieces and bolted the valve cover to it. Thankfully, Toyota valve covers are flat. So if you have a flat surface and you bolt it down to it, you can blast the outside without having any fear of getting in any media on the inside part of this valve cover. All right. One last thing that we're going to do is so you notice I have yoga mat stuffed in these little holes here because these go directly down through to the other side of the valve cover. What I'm going to do here next is I'm going to plug this with some yoga mat and then wrap it with tape because the blast media will remove this anti-corrosive finish off of this piece of pipe that comes out of the valve cover. Same thing with this side, all right? So I'm going to tape that up because it will remove any coating that is on here. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to blast this half with the extra fine glass bead media only to start. I'm not going to bother with this side of it, and I'm going to point out some issues that you could have when you're blasting a large part like this and why I think that a two-step approach is best. We'll be blasting with extra fine glass bead media again at 50 psi. And here's what I found that happens here is there's different levels of corrosion on this valve cover. And as you're trying to remove the heavier areas, you stay on that heavier area and you're blasting it with the extra fine glass bead media at a certain angle till you get it off. What happens then is you'll start to really polish this area at a certain angle, and the angles are going to vary from area to area. So the valve cover, when it's all dry and all the water has evaporated from it, it'll have a very inconsistent finish. You'll have some areas that look a little bit more polished. It's just not an even, consistent finish across the whole part. And I didn't get all into doing every little piece, but you get the idea. So like over here, there's heavy corrosion. To knock off this heavy corrosion, you'd have to stay on it with the extra fine glass bead media for quite a long time. Now I'm going to show you the difference by switching to a more aggressive media. I'm going to go to an 80 grit glass and then blast with that, knock off all this stuff. It's not going to be shiny at all. It's actually going to look like a very dull color, but then we'll put the extra fine glass bead media back in the vapor blast cabinet and polish the whole thing, and it will be nice, even, and consistent. All right. So let me go ahead and switch out the media, and we'll continue. What we have loaded in the cabinet now is the 80 grit glass bead media. We'll be blasting again at 50 psi. So let's get started. Eighty grit stage is complete. This is what it looks like. It looks like a very dull gray color because the 80 grit media is will not shine. It's very aggressive, and it's just meant to remove contaminants. So you can see it looks real good. We removed a bunch of oxidation, oil, dirt, grime. You don't need to degrease or anything. Just stick it in the machine and go. Now you can see in between all the those hose connectors. Looks real good. Now the next step would be for me to load the extra fine glass bead media, and then now's when all the magic happens. This thing will polish up real nice. And it got dark on me, guys, so I apologize for not being able to take the same pictures outside. But you can see it's got a nice, even, consistent finish on it. There's no blotchiness to it. Let me turn it around so you guys can see it from another angle. So here it is from the timing belt side. Here it is from the timing belt side. And walking around. And then let me show you the other side. There it is from the hose side, and you can see how it got all underneath all those hoses, or those tubes for the hoses. There it is on the side. And you just there's just no other way to get a finish like this unless you're using some type of water-based blast media. There's just, I mean, I can't see any other way of doing it other than just sandblasting it and then just powder coating it or painting it. But I mean, this is just the stock polished aluminum valve cover. It's amazing to me. Blows my mind every time I use it. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and untape this, give it one final cleaning. We'll put the gasket back on and then reinstall it in the Yaris. I wanted to give you guys a little advice if you're going to use any kind of blast media, and is always check your threads. Okay, one thing that's very important is to blow these things out really well. And honestly, what I should have done is plug these to not have to deal with the media getting in there in the first place. If you do get media in there like I did, what I recommend you do is run a tap down that hole. Okay, so get yourself a tap that fits, and then just run the tap down. And if you hear any kind of crunching at all, stop. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to back it out and you're going to blow it out with compressed air. Yeah, in this case, I've already done it, so there is no media in there. But you got to make sure you get all that media out. If you don't get the media out, what will happen when you put your bolt in there? Your bolt will create friction with that media, and it'll probably seize it up, and you'll mess up your threads. Okay, so very important. So all you're gonna do is you're just gonna get some compressed air, and you're just gonna blow out the threads. And also, what I like to do is I'll run run a dye on this one, so that I can clean up these threads to make sure that it goes in all the way. So I've already measured this bolt. The bolt will go all the way down and just leave maybe about a quarter of an inch of thread. So just about that much thread, okay? And I know that that's going to fit because what I did is I took a measurement tool and I measured down to the height of that little ledge there. And then when I look at my tool, it says 12.74 millimeter. Now when I check the coil-on plug, okay, see the coil-on plug is taller, so I know, so the coil-on plug is 14.6 millimeters, and that bolt ran all the way down was 12.5, I believe. Okay, so if you got if that's the case, then you know you're good to go. You're not gonna have any problems. Where you will have problems is if you start to run this bolt down. Let's say you start to run this bolt down, and it stops or starts to crunch when it's all the way out here. Okay, if that's the case, that's not good, because then when you get in the car and you're going to put your coil pack back on, as soon as you start tightening it, it's going to get harder and harder to tighten, and you'll probably mess up the threads. Okay, very important. All right, I'm going to blow out the rest of these, check them with the tap, and then use the dye on the bolt sides, and then we'll go ahead and put it back in the car.